This video is sponsored by OWC. Apple's new lineup of Macs with custom silicon chips are here. There's the new MacBook Air, the new MacBook Pro, and the new Mac Mini. Now, if you're thinking about upgrading, I'll try to help you pick the right one, but spoiler alert, they're all pretty fantastic. All right, let's go through obvious details first. The Mac Mini now starts at $699. The 13-inch MacBook Air is still at $999, and the 13-inch MacBook Pro still starts at $1299. There aren't a whole lot of customization options available at checkout because the M1 chip is standard across the entire lineup. You can pick the size of your SSD and then choose between 8 or 16 gigabytes of RAM. So let's start with whether or not you really need the additional 8 gigabytes of RAM. Close these because I feel like I'm gonna hit them over. So the obvious answer is if you have an extra $200 to spare, then you should do it. There won't be any harm in having the extra memory available, especially for someone who wants to run a bunch of applications and tasks at once. But the M1 chip already helps so much that I'm not entirely sure it's really necessary. I mean, I'd rather invest that $200 in a bigger internal SSD, especially if you're someone who wants to work directly on their Mac and then transfer large files over to maybe another storage system that you might have docked on your desk, which is what my workflow is generally, especially when I'm editing video, photos, music, etc. I like to do everything on the internal SSD, and then once that project is over with, I just transfer all of those files that I no longer need onto a larger file storage management system that I have. So really, the main question here, and probably why you're watching this video, is whether or not you should buy an M1 Mac in the first place, and then if so, which one? And as far as which one goes, that's the toughest answer because they're all really incredible. Typical benchmarks like Geekbench tell me that these Macs are all very close in performance with similar scores throughout each machine. Yeah, the SSD speeds are going to vary slightly from Mac to Mac depending on which one you get, but overall they're still very good and right up at par with one another. Now, after testing these Macs out over the last few days, my eyes tell me that these are all incredible updates over the Intel counterparts. The main thing here being that the M1 chip and macOS Big Sur work incredibly well together. The Rosetta-based apps that are still not quite optimized for the M1, they work perfectly fine. M1 apps are obviously really good, and the ability to use iPhone and iPad apps can be extremely helpful for some other people out there. Now, not every app or driver or piece of hardware is compatible, so if there's something that you absolutely need to have and you're thinking about upgrading to an M1 Mac, please, please, please do some research on your own and figure out whether or not what you have and what you need is compatible. I'll give you a quick example of what I'm talking about. I have a Universal Audio Apollo Twin X, absolutely love it. I have some Yamaha monitors plugged in, and if you wanted to do any kind of recording with that console or anything at all, using an M1 or even Big Sur, it's not currently compatible. So in the future, they're obviously working on an update, but right now I can't use anything with my main Mac Pro being updated to Big Sur, or I can't even use it on the M1 Mac. So just do some research if you are planning to pick up an M1 Mac. Now, we already did a speed test between the M1 MacBook Pro and the Intel MacBook Pro from early 2020. And now, not every result was a direct impact of the Intel chip. It's not all its fault, but really the whole point of that video was to show users that even upgrading from an Intel MacBook Pro to the new M1 was such a big update, and just all around having something to do with the M1 chip versus Intel, and just overall the computer as a whole is still a pretty big upgrade. Other functions that have improved on these M1 machines include the fingerprint sensor, which seems to be significantly faster at reading and processing the data, whether it be checking out online using Apple Pay or just logging into your Mac. It just feels a lot quicker than its Intel counterpart. Even small tasks like changing the resolution on your M1 Mac is now instantaneous, compared to the Intel Macs having to go dark, switch to the resolution, say, hey, does this look okay for you? And then if it doesn't, oh wait, I have to go dark again and switch back. Now, none of those were time-wasting tasks by any means, but it's just kind of cool to see these improvements. The MacBook Air is officially a fanless machine, and now I have noticed that it has rarely gotten hot like some of the other MacBook Airs that I have tested in the past. And honestly, the same experience applies with the MacBook Pro. In that speed test video, I hammered home the point that my fans never kicked on. I've used that machine for about a full week now, and I still have yet to hear the fans come on. A lot of people commented that, oh, maybe your fans are defective. Do you even have fans in there? Do they work? I can confirm that there are fans in there. They aren't defective, and honestly, my MacBook Pro rarely ever got hot to the point where the fans needed to kick on, which is why I still haven't yet to hear them. The same thing applies with the Mac Mini, but it is important to note that you should expect the Mac Mini to have better, sustained, high-intensity task performance over time over the other two machines due to its fan and cooling differences. Now, the same also applies to the MacBook Pro over the MacBook Air, since the MacBook Air is technically fanless. With that said, battery life for the two laptops have been fantastic. Again, it's early and I expect different results as the months and years go on, but for my metrics, I can tell you that I have never, at any point in time of purchasing an Intel MacBook Pro or MacBook Air, been able to edit an entire 4K video or any other multimedia project without having my MacBook plugged in and still having lots of battery life to spare after that task has been completed. It just has not happened. With these new MacBook Pros and MacBook Airs, I've had plenty of battery life to spare after doing an entire video, and that's just, again, something that's never happened for me. If you rely on Windows applications for work or whatever the case may be with Parallels or Boot Camp, then as of right now, I'd avoid upgrading to any M1 Mac since that functionality is not currently supported. It may be in the future, but as of right now, it's not. For everyone else, I have noticed absolutely no other issues with day-to-day use. I saw some users saying that apps like Microsoft Office Suite might not work really well, or there's some issues with the M1 Mac, but that just hasn't been the case on my end. Obviously, what I do for work, for creative professionals out there, that's what I like to use as an example because that's just how I use my Macs. Especially those who use Apple applications like Logic or Final Cut Pro, performance has been incredible for lower-end base model machines compared to some of the even higher-end, highest spec'd out Intel machines. It's just mind-blowing to see this level of performance. So it really comes down to, do you want an M1 Mac, and are the daily apps or tasks that you use your Mac compatible with M1 and Big Sur? Do you want a laptop or do you want a desktop? That's it. After that, just go with whatever fits your budget. You won't be disappointed. The Mac Mini is the cheapest of the three, but you will need to get an external monitor, a keyboard, and a mouse. And all of that can be achieved for very, very little money. You can get a monitor for under $100, and you can get a keyboard and mouse for very, very cheap. But if you wanted something a little bit more versatile and you wanted to be able to take it with you on the go, obviously a laptop is the way to go. And I'd probably choose the MacBook Air because, again, performance and efficiency throughout all of these machines are really, really close to each other. And so depending on what you do, for most of you out there, the MacBook Air is probably the best option, in my opinion, to go with. Of course, I would love to know your thoughts on the M1 in the comments down below. Are you planning on upgrading? I know a lot of you people out there still want to use Windows-based applications or Boot Camp or whatever, and that's just not going to be the case. But for those of you that are thinking about it, what else might be holding you back? Go ahead and let us know in those comments down below. And before we end today's video, I want to give you more information about today's sponsor, OWC. OWC offers a wide range of products for your Mac, like internal hard drives and SSDs, memory, Thunderbolt 3 docks, and much more. One product that really caught my attention recently is the new Envoy Pro Electron SSD. This is OWC's fastest and toughest mini-sized USB-C powered drive that the company offers, and yeah, it's super fast. This drive boasts incredible real-world performance due to it being powered by OWC's Aura SSD, giving users up to 1,011 megabytes per second. It's incredibly small and can fit in your pocket easily, but it's also built like an absolute tank. This is the perfect new SSD for those who are worried about being on the go and potentially something happening to your SSD because it's so rugged, the build quality is excellent, and it's extremely durable. So for more information about this new Envoy Pro, Electron, or anything else OWC has to offer, visit the link in the description down below. This has been Dan with MacRumors. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you around in the next video.